My sister Celeste had 30 seconds to live, and I was 2 miles away with a rifle in my hands, watching through my scope as enemy fighters closed in on her squad. I could see her blonde hair beneath her helmet as she dragged a wounded Navy SEAL behind a crumbling stone wall. The mathematics were brutal and simple. 43 enemy fighters were converging on 7 Americans trapped in a kill zone with nowhere to run. Before we dive in, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode is truly mind-blowing. Let's get started. I'm Staff Sergeant Kieran Walsh, and for the last 8 years, I've been what the Marine Corps calls a scout sniper. My job is to watch, to calculate, and to kill from distances that most people can't even see. But that morning in the mountains of Afghanistan, none of my training had prepared me for watching my little sister about to die, while I had strict orders to stay hidden and maintain my position. Celeste is Hospital Corpsman 2nd Class Celeste Walsh, my sister, my best friend, and the only family I have left in this world. She's 24 years old, brilliant with a medical kit, and stubborn enough to volunteer for the most dangerous assignments the Navy can throw at her. That's how she ended up attached to SEAL Team 7 as their corpsman, and that's how she ended up in my crosshairs that day, not as a target, but as the one person I couldn't afford to lose. Through my scope, I watched her check the wounded SEAL's pulse, her movements calm and professional even as bullets cracked over her head. She had no idea I was there. Command had classified my position as need to know, and apparently little sisters don't need to know. But in about 25 seconds, when those fighters reached effective range, none of that would matter anymore. The enemy moved with military precision, not the chaotic rush of desperate fighters, but the calculated advance of soldiers who knew exactly what they were doing. They had studied this kill zone, planned this ambush, and positioned themselves perfectly. The crashed helicopter smoking 200 meters away told me everything about how this morning had gone wrong for the good guys. I adjusted my scope and felt my heartbeat, slow to that familiar rhythm every sniper knows. In 15 seconds, I would have to choose between following my orders and watching my sister die, or taking a shot that would save her life and probably end my military career. The crosshairs settled on the chest of the lead fighter, a tall man with a radio who was coordinating the assault on Celeste's position. 10 seconds now. Through my earpiece, I could hear the desperate radio chatter from her squad leader, calling for immediate extraction that wasn't coming. I could see Celeste's lips moving as she talked to the wounded SEAL, probably telling him everything would be okay, even though she had to know it wouldn't be. 5 seconds. My finger found the trigger. This wasn't just about saving 7 Americans trapped in a valley. This was about the girl who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms, who helped me pass algebra when I was failing out of high school, who joined the Navy because she wanted to save people's lives instead of taking them. The command frequency crackled in my ear. Ghost Eagle, maintain overwatch position. Do not engage unless directly fired upon. But sometimes orders and family don't line up the way they're supposed to. Let me take you back to how this all started, because understanding that morning means understanding why I made the choice I did. It was March 15th, 2019, in a valley so remote that it didn't even have a name on our maps. We called it Target Area Phoenix, a collection of mud brick compounds where intelligence said we'd find a high-value target responsible for coordinating attacks against American forces. I'd been in position on Ridgepoint Alpha since 0200 hours, nearly 5 hours of lying motionless behind my rifle, watching the world wake up through a 20-power scope. At 2.3 miles from the target compound, I was invisible to anyone without advanced optics. Just another shadow among the rocks and scrub brush that covered these Afghan mountains. The mission was supposed to be routine. SEAL Team 7 would infiltrate the compound, capture or eliminate the target, and extract with any intelligence they could gather. My job was simple: watch for threats, report what I saw, and provide long-range support if things went sideways. Clean, professional, by the book. What nobody told me was that Celeste would be down there. Hospital Corpsman 2nd Class Celeste Walsh, my little sister, attached to the SEAL team as their medical support. I only found out when I spotted her distinctive gait through my scope as the team moved toward the compound at dawn. She walked the same way she had since we were kids, slightly pigeon-toed but confident, like she owned whatever ground she stepped on. Growing up in Montana after our parents died in a car accident, Celeste and I only had each other. She was 14 when it happened, I was 16, and we spent the next 4 years bouncing between foster homes and relatives who didn't really want the responsibility of 2 traumatized teenagers. But Celeste never let it break her. She studied harder, planned better, dreamed bigger. She joined the Navy to save lives. I joined the Marines because I didn't know what else angry young men from nowhere towns were supposed to do. Our last conversation had been 3 weeks earlier, over a scratchy satellite phone connection. I'd gotten into a bar fight with some Army guys who made comments about Navy corpsmen being soft. Defending her honor cost me my weekend leave and a chance to visit our foster parents back in Billings. "You always think you have to save everyone, Kieran," she'd said, her voice tired. "But sometimes you just make things worse." Those words had been eating at me for weeks, and now here she was, 2 miles away and completely unaware that her big brother was watching over her through a rifle scope. At 06:47 hours, everything changed. I was tracking the SEAL team's movement toward their extraction point when something caught my eye in the peripheral vision of my scope. Movement in the ridgelines, systematic and coordinated, not the random scatter of goat herders or farmers, but the deliberate positioning of trained fighters. I counted them as they revealed themselves. 3 groups of 12 to 15 men each, armed with AK-47s, RPGs, and what looked like at least 2 heavy machine guns. They were moving into a perfect kill box around the extraction landing zone, taking positions that would give them overlapping fields of fire with no escape routes for anyone caught in the middle. This wasn't a random encounter or a crime of opportunity. Someone had fed them intelligence about the mission timing, the route, the extraction point. The SEAL team was walking into a carefully planned ambush, and they had no idea it was coming. I switched to the command frequency and keyed my radio. "Blackwater 7, this is Ghost Eagle. You have enemy movement converging on your position from multiple directions. Count approximately 40 fighters with heavy weapons." The SEAL team leader's voice came back calm and professional. "Ghost Eagle, we show all clear on thermal imaging. No hostile contacts in our immediate area." I adjusted my scope and focused on the largest group, now less than 800 meters from Celeste's position. "Blackwater 7, I have direct visual confirmation. Large force with RPGs moving to ambush positions along your extraction route. Ghost Eagle, maintain overwatch position. Continue reporting, but do not engage unless fired upon directly." I watched helplessly as the trap closed around them. The fighters moved with military precision, using natural cover and coordinated timing. Whoever was leading this operation knew exactly what they were doing. They knew the SEAL team's route, their timing, and their extraction procedures. At 06:51 hours, the first RPG streaked across the valley. The incoming helicopter never had a chance. I watched through my scope as the aircraft took a direct hit to its tail rotor and spiraled into the ground 200 meters from the landing zone, sending up a pillar of black smoke that could be seen for miles. The SEAL team hit the dirt as automatic weapons fire erupted from 3 directions simultaneously. They found cover behind a low stone wall that offered protection from small arms but left them completely exposed to the RPG teams I could see maneuvering for better positions. Through my scope, I watched Celeste drag the wounded team leader behind the wall, her medical pack clearly visible on her back. In the chaos of the firefight, I could see her working on his wounds while bullets cracked overhead. The mathematics of death were simple and brutal. I counted muzzle flashes from 43 enemy positions, calculated their rate of advance, and estimated the ammunition the SEAL team had remaining. Every number pointed to the same conclusion. Celeste and her squad would be overrun in less than 10 minutes. Command's voice crackled through my earpiece one final time. "Ghost Eagle, maintain position. Do not compromise overwatch. Reinforcements are inbound. ETA 22 minutes. 22 minutes. My sister would be dead in 8. I stared through my scope at Celeste as she worked on the wounded team leader, her hands steady despite the bullets snapping over her head. She had rolled him onto his side to check for exit wounds, the same technique she'd practiced on me when we were kids playing medic with her stuffed animals. Even under fire, she moved with the calm efficiency that had always made me proud of her. But pride wouldn't stop the 3 RPG teams I could see, maneuvering for kill shots on their position. I switched my radio to an emergency frequency that bypassed command and keyed the mic. "Celeste, this is your brother. Can you hear me?" The silence stretched for 5 seconds that felt like hours. Then her voice came back, tight with disbelief. "Kieran, what are you doing here?" Command said Overwatch was provided by Air Force assets. "Do you trust me?" Another pause, shorter this time, filled with the crack of incoming rounds. Always have, always will. I'm going to start shooting, and when I do, you need to move your team 200 meters north to that rocky outcrop. The one that looks like a sleeping bear. Do you see it? Through my scope, I watched her raise her head slightly and scan the terrain. I see it. But Kieran, if you start shooting, they'll know where you are. Let me worry about that. On my mark, you move fast and you don't look back. Can you get Martinez mobile? He's got a through and through in his shoulder, but he can run. I began my calculations. Wind speed 6 miles per hour from the southwest. Temperature climbing to 97 degrees. Targets ranging from 800 meters to 2,400 meters across multiple elevations. I had 47 rounds of .300 Winchester Magnum ammunition and needed to shift the tactical advantage for 7 Americans against 43 enemy fighters. The first shot would be everything. Miss, and I'd reveal my position for nothing. Hit, and maybe I could buy my sister enough time to live. I settled my crosshairs on the enemy commander, a tall man with a radio who was directing the assault from 2,400 meters away. At that distance, my bullet would take 3.2 seconds to reach him, traveling through shifting wind and rising heat that could throw off my shot by inches. I controlled my breathing, felt my heartbeat slow to that familiar rhythm, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle's recoil drove into my shoulder as I watched through my scope. For those 3 endless seconds, the entire battle seemed to pause. Then the commander's chest erupted in red, and he collapsed backward, his radio spinning away across the rocky ground. The effect was immediate and electric. Enemy fighters froze in confusion, scanning the mountains for a threat they couldn't see. I had maybe 30 seconds before they regrouped. Shot number 2 took down an RPG gunner at 1,800 meters who was lining up on Celeste's position. The man simply vanished behind his launcher as my bullet found its mark. Shot number 3 eliminated his loader before the man could even understand what had happened to his partner. Through my scope, I saw Celeste grab the wounded team leader and start moving north toward the rocky outcrop. The other SEALs followed in a tactical formation, covering each other as they bounded from position to position. My sister moved like she'd been doing this her whole life, calm and professional under fire. But the enemy was adapting. Fighters began taking cover and scanning the ridgelines for muzzle flashes. I had to keep moving my position between shots, using different angles and elevations to create the illusion of multiple snipers positioned throughout the mountains. Shot number 7 dropped a machine gunner who had found Celeste's team's new position. Shot number 8 took out a spotter who was directing fire onto the rocky outcrop where my sister now knelt, still working on the wounded SEAL. Then I saw him. An enemy sniper, nearly 2,600 meters away, settling behind a rifle with his own scope trained on the outcrop. He'd found Celeste's position, and from his angle, she was completely exposed while she worked on her patient. This was the shot that would decide everything. 2,600 meters uphill through an 8-mile-per-hour crosswind that was gusting unpredictably through the mountain valley. The enemy sniper was already taking up trigger slack, his crosshairs steady on my sister's back. I had one chance to save her life. I held my breath and squeezed the trigger. Through my scope, I watched my bullet strike the enemy sniper center mass, his rifle spinning away as he fell backward behind the rocks. Celeste never even knew how close she'd come to dying. With their leadership eliminated and their heavy weapons neutralized, the coordinated assault collapsed into chaos. Enemy fighters began breaking contact and fleeing into the mountains, abandoning the ambush positions they'd held so carefully. What had been a professional military operation became a rout in less than 20 minutes. The extraction helicopters arrived 37 minutes later to find 7 Americans alive and a scattered enemy force. The official after-action report credited exceptional overwatch support and tactical coordination. Nobody mentioned disobeyed orders or family members in the kill zone. 3 hours later, I found Celeste at the forward operating base, sitting outside the medical tent where she'd been treated for minor shrapnel wounds. She was cleaning her equipment with the same methodical precision she'd shown everything since we were kids. "How many shots did you take?" she asked without looking up from her medical kit. 23. "How many did you hit?" I sat down next to her on the wooden bench. I stopped counting after the first one. She nodded and continued organizing her supplies. "The team leader is going to be fine. Clean entry and exit, no major vessels hit. He'll be back to full duty in 6 weeks. Good. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching helicopters ferry wounded soldiers to larger medical facilities. Finally, she turned to look at me directly. "You know what I realized out there today? When I said you always try to save everyone, I thought it was because you didn't trust us to handle ourselves." "But that's not it, is it?" I shook my head. "No, you do it because you think we're worth saving. There's a difference between protecting someone because you think they're helpless and protecting them because you know they're strong enough to be worth the risk." 3 months later, I received the Silver Star for what the citation called conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action against an armed enemy. The ceremony was held at Camp Pendleton with dress, uniforms, and speeches about duty and honor. But the real recognition came in a letter from Celeste that I still carry in my wallet today. "Thank you for seeing the difference when it mattered most," she wrote. "And thank you for trusting me to fight alongside you instead of just rescuing me. Sometimes the best way to protect someone isn't to carry their weight, but to trust them to carry their own."